There is a dog breed so ancient that it existed before the pyramids of Egypt were built. A dog that guarded nomadic tribes crossing the Silk Road when Rome was nothing but a collection of mud huts. This dog has been doing the exact same job for 5,000 years without changing, without evolving, because it was already perfect, and its name is the Alabai. Most people have never heard of the Alabai, and that's not an accident. This breed was never exported, never commercialized, never turned into a show dog for Western audiences. For 5 millennia, it existed in the most brutal mountain ranges of Central Asia, doing one job: keeping nomadic shepherds and their flocks alive in an environment filled with wolves, bears, and snow leopards. Welcome to the story of the Central Asian shepherd, the dog the world forgot, but that Central Asia never stopped depending on. This is what happens when a breed is shaped not by human preference, but by pure survival for 5,000 consecutive years. And once you understand what the Alabai truly is, every other guardian breed you've ever known will seem like a recent experiment. Let's start with the timeline, because the age of this breed is almost incomprehensible. Archaeologists have found remains of dogs matching the Alabai structure in Central Asian sites dating back to 3000 BC. That means this: breed was already fully formed and working when the wheel was still a relatively new invention. While ancient Egypt was building the pyramids, the Alabai was protecting sheep in the mountains of Turkmenistan. While Greece was developing philosophy, the Alabai was fighting wolves in Kazakhstan. While Rome was conquering Europe, the Alabai was doing exactly what it does today, unchanged, unaltered, because it didn't need improvement. The Alabai is not the product of selective breeding by kennel clubs or enthusiasts with a vision. This dog was created by the most ruthless breeder imaginable, the Central Asian wilderness itself. Only the dogs that could survive -40-degree winters, fight off wolf packs, and work independently for days without human supervision pass their genes forward. The region that created the Alabai spans modern-day Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and parts of Afghanistan and Iran. This is some of the harshest terrain on Earth. Mountain ranges that reach 20,000 feet, deserts where temperatures swing 100 degrees between day and night, and steppes where winter wind cuts through everything. The nomadic tribes that inhabited these regions needed a dog that could handle all of it without complaint, without shelter, without anything except its own capability. What emerged was the Alabai, and every single physical and behavioral trait this dog possesses exists because anything less meant death. There was no room for weakness, no tolerance for hesitation, no forgiveness for poor judgment. So what does an Alabai actually look like? Males weigh between 110 and 170 pounds, with some exceptional individuals exceeding 200 pounds. This is not the refined look of a show mastiff. This is raw, functional mass, dense bone structure, and thick muscle built for combat and endurance in equal measure. The head is massive and broad with a short, powerful muzzle and incredibly strong jaws. The neck is so thick and muscular that wolf bites, which would kill most dogs, instantly become survivable injuries. The body is slightly longer than it is tall, built for stability and power rather than speed, though the Alabai is deceptively fast when it needs to be. The coat is the Alabai's armor. It's thick, dense, and weather-resistant, designed to handle both freezing mountain winters and scorching desert summers. Traditional Alabai come in various colors: white, black, brindle, fawn, and many have distinctive markings that help shepherds identify their dogs from a distance across vast landscapes. Traditionally, Alabai have their ears cropped short and their tails docked. This wasn't cosmetic it. It was tactical. Wolves target ears and tails in fights, and removing them eliminated those vulnerabilities entirely. Now let's talk about what the Alabai was actually bred to do, because this is where the breed separates itself from every other guardian dog you've heard of. The Alabai wasn't guarding a fenced backyard or a contained property. It was protecting massive flocks of sheep being moved across hundreds of miles of open territory filled with predators. The dog had to work completely independently, making life and death decisions without any human input or backup. When wolves attacked at midnight on a mountain pass, there was no shepherd with a rifle coming to help. The Alabai was alone, and it either won that fight or the entire flock died. This created a dog with an almost eerie level of independence and decision-making capability. The Alabai doesn't look to humans for permission or guidance in threatening situations. It assesses, decides, and acts. This independence is still present in every Alabai alive today, and it's the single biggest challenge for modern owners who expect obedience-focused training to work. The Alabai's relationship with threats is completely different from reactive guard dogs. This breed doesn't bark frantically or patrol nervously. It finds a high vantage point, lies down, and watches everything within a half-mile radius with complete calm. It looks lazy, almost disinterested, until something crosses an invisible boundary that only the Alabai understands. Then the transformation is instant. The dog rises, positions itself between the threat and what it's protecting, and issues a warning, usually a deep, resonant bark that carries across mountains. Most threats turn around at this point because animals that have encountered Alabai before know exactly what that warning means. If the threat doesn't retreat, the Alabai doesn't hesitate. It engages with overwhelming force, using its size, power, and tactical intelligence to end the confrontation as quickly as possible. These dogs have been documented driving off entire wolf packs, surviving encounters with bears, and protecting flocks from snow leopards in the Pamir Mountains. Here's what makes the Alabai's temperament so fascinating and so misunderstood. Within its family and with its flock, the Alabai is calm, affectionate, and incredibly gentle. These dogs form deep bonds with their people and show a patience with children that seems impossible given their size and power. But that gentleness is exclusive to the family unit. Strangers are evaluated with deep suspicion, and the Alabai's default assumption is that unfamiliar people and animals are potential threats until proven otherwise. This isn't fear-based aggression, this is ancient survival programming that kept flocks alive for 5,000 years. The Alabai doesn't seek social interaction with strangers, and it doesn't care about being liked by people outside its family. This is a working dog that takes its guardian role with absolute seriousness. And modern pet owners who expect a friendly social dog will be deeply disappointed. Training an Alabai requires completely abandoning conventional dog training methods. This breed was shaped by 5,000 years of making independent decisions in life-threatening situations, and that independence cannot be trained out. You can't force an Alabai to obey through dominance or harsh corrections. It will simply stop trusting you and then stop listening to you entirely. What works is establishing yourself as a fair, consistent leader who makes good decisions. The Alabai needs to respect your judgment before it will follow your commands. This isn't about being the alpha, it's about being competent, calm, and trustworthy in the dog's eyes. When you achieve that, the Alabai's loyalty is absolute, but it will always retain the right to override your commands if it assesses a genuine threat. Because for 5,000 years, that independence is what kept its ancestors alive. Modern owners need to accept this fundamental aspect of the breed or choose a different dog entirely. Socialization with the Alabai is critical, but it looks different than socialization with other breeds. The goal is not to make the Alabai friendly with everyone that contradicts its entire purpose and genetic programming. The goal is to expose the dog to enough controlled situations that it can distinguish between normal activity and genuine threats. A well-socialized Alabai is calm and neutral in public settings. It doesn't need to greet strangers or interact with other dogs, it just needs to understand their presence. It doesn't automatically require a protective response. Without this exposure, the Alabai defaults to treating everything unfamiliar as a threat, which is completely unmanageable in modern environments. Early and extensive socialization must happen during the critical window before 6 months of age. Miss that window and you have a 150-pound dog with a 5,000-year-old guardian instinct operating at full sensitivity in a world it doesn't understand. The Alabai nearly disappeared in the 20th century, and the story of how it survived is remarkable. During the Soviet era, the USSR government attempted to standardize and register the breed as the Central Asian Ovcharka. They wanted to use these dogs for military and border patrol work, which required breeding programs and documentation. But the nomadic tribes of Central Asia refused to cooperate. They had been breeding these dogs for functionality for 5,000 years and had zero interest in Soviet breeding standards or registration papers. They continued breeding the working dogs exactly as they always had, preserving the ancient bloodlines, while the Soviet breeding programs created a separate, heavily modified version. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the ancient working bloodlines still existed in remote mountain communities, largely unchanged. Today, breeders in Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan are working to preserve these original lines, while the breed slowly gains recognition internationally. In Turkmenistan, the Alabai, is a national symbol. There are monuments to the breed. It appears on postage stamps, and the government protects the breed's genetic integrity with the same seriousness as cultural heritage sites. Export of pure Turkmen Alabai is heavily restricted because the country considers these dogs a national treasure. That's how seriously Central Asia takes this breed, not as a pet, not as a show dog, but as a living piece of history that must be preserved. When a culture treats a dog the way most countries treat archaeological artifacts, you begin to understand the depth of respect and importance this breed commands. Health-wise, the Alabai is remarkably sound for a giant breed, which makes sense, given 5,000 years of natural selection. Hip dysplasia exists, but at lower rates than many other large breeds, because dogs with joint problems couldn't do the work and didn't reproduce. Bloat is a concern with any deep-chested giant breed, so feeding multiple smaller meals and avoiding exercise after eating is important. The lifespan is typical for giant breeds 10 to 12 years, with some individuals living longer. That's actually impressive longevity for a dog of this size, and it speaks to the breed's overall genetic health. These are not fragile dogs built for appearance. These are functional animals built for a lifetime of hard work. So who should own an Alabai? The honest answer is almost nobody in modern Western society. This is not a dog for first-time owners, not a dog for city living, not a dog for people who want a companion that's eager to please and socially friendly. The Alabai requires extensive property, ideally rural land, where the dog has space and purpose. It requires an owner with experience handling independent guardian breeds, someone who understands the difference between training and partnership. It requires a lifestyle that can accommodate a dog that was designed to work independently and make its own decisions. If you work 10-hour days and live in a suburb, this is absolutely the wrong breed for you. But if you have land, if you have livestock or property that genuinely needs protection, if you have experience with serious working dogs, and if you can provide the structure and purpose this breed requires, the Alabai will give you something almost no other breed can offer. You'll get a dog that carries 5,000 years of unbroken working heritage. A guardian that doesn't need your instructions because it already knows its job better than you could ever teach it. You'll get a partner that's gentle with your family and absolutely uncompromising with anything it perceives as a threat. You'll get a piece of living history that has been doing the same job since before recorded history began. The Alabai isn't for everyone. It's not for most people, but for the right person with the right situation. It's a once-in-a-lifetime dog that connects you directly to 5,000 years of human and canine partnership. The world has created thousands of dog breeds in the last 200 years, chasing aesthetics and trends and showring standards. But the Alabai stands apart from all of that. It was never created. It was forged by survival, and for 5,000 years it has done its job so well that it never needed to change. That's not just a dog breed. That's a living archaeological artifact. And it's still working today, exactly as it always has, in the same mountains where it started. If that doesn't earn your respect, nothing will.